warm welcome to Tanzania Today, your weekly program that looks at the issues of national interest as Tanzania continues to position itself as a continental and global powerhouse. On Thursday, 17th of July, 2025, Tanzania made a history as President of United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, unveiled the National Development Vision 2050. Now, to discuss deeper about the Dira 2050 and to review as well the current one, which is Dira 2025, we have a great pleasure to be joined by the man himself, the Minister of State, President's Office, Investment and Planning, Professor Kitila Mkumbo. Professor, welcome to Tanzania Today.
Thank you very much.
And as usual, top analysts are here as well to discuss about the Dira 2050 and also, of course, to review Dira 2025. Issa Omar is here with us as well. Mr. Omar, welcome. Dr. Richard Mbunda as well is here.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you so much.
to Tanzania Today. And Dr. Bravias Kayoza, as usual, economic analyst. Welcome to Tanzania Today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Professor, we want to discuss about Dira 2050, Tanzania's national development plan for till the year 2050. First of all, congratulations on a great job that you have done. Some people cannot plan even for a day, but you're able to plan for 25 years for the nation. Great job. We also want to see where we're coming from. We want to discuss a little bit about the National Vision 2025, the current one, which will come to an end of June next year, 2026. Maybe some of the viewers would like to know the design of the current one, the Vision 2025, and also the challenges, especially that you think you have faced, especially during the implementation of the current National Vision 2025.
Thank you very much for having me in your program. As you correctly pointed out, that on the 17th this month, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan launched the Dira 2050. We have decided deliberately we are not going to translate Dira into vision. So it will be called Dira 2050, both in English and Kiswahili. So the word here is Dira rather than vision. So that is, if you pick the two documents, one in Kiswahili and one in English, they both read Dira 2050. Dira, if you have seen.
Something very interesting.
Yes, very interesting. So it is Dira rather than vision. The second thing which you asked, yes, we have been implementing for the past 25 years, Vision 2025 for that matter. And this has been the roadmap for Tanzania's development process for the past 25 years. It has been our compass guiding us to plan our development agenda, and it has been implemented through 3 5-year development plans, the last one which is going to end on June 30th next year. So we have come a long way. When we started implementing this vision in 2000, the GDP for this country was around $13 billion. Today we are talking about more than $8 billion is our GDP. So we have traveled a long way. The GDP per capita was less than $350. Today we are talking about more than 12,000, around 80, 1,280. So we have moved. When we are starting implementing the Vision 2000, access to water in rural areas was only around 10%. Today we are talking about more than 77% in rural areas. Electricity similarly was less than 10% across the country. Today we are going to, in terms of access, almost every village has electricity. So in terms of access to secondary education, for example, in 2000, less than 10% of students finishing Standard 7 would be able to proceed to Form 1. Today we are going to close to more than 70%. So I think we have moved a long way over the last 25 years. And therefore we are using this vision achievements as a foundation for the current vision going for the next 25 years. Challenges, there were many challenges, but one key challenge was the fact that I think there was a little bit lack of ownership among the Tanzanians this ended up being largely a government document. And that is proven by the fact that when we conduct the survey, only 30% of Tanzanians that were interviewed said they have actually heard about Vision 2025, which is why this time around we changed the strategy to ensure that as far as possible, we are able to include as many Tanzanians as possible to make their views about what they want to see going forward.
During her speech, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, actually really at the end, she mentioned about another challenge about monitoring and evaluation. Yeah. And she really insisted for the people who are responsible to oversee the next vision to ensure that this is being monitored very well. What's your word on that, and how can we actually build on that issue of monitoring and evaluation, measuring KPIs?
The reason she made that call was the fact that this time around, we have put very high level targets. We are talking about this country going forward in next 25 years to have a GDP of $1 trillion in the next 25 years from the current GDP of less than $85 billion, which means that we have to move, in a pace which is not usual. So she was talking about we have to adopt the business unusual approach. Yes. And therefore, she was emphasizing the importance of implementation, the importance of changing our attitudes. We cannot continue doing things in a business as usual approach. We really have to change. I think that was the call. And therefore, everybody, the government, the private sector, the individuals, they will have to change. We'll have to give each other very specific key performance indicators. We have to improve our monitoring and evaluation so that we are able to achieve what we want to achieve. So we really have very high level targets, quite ambitious, but of course our analysis have shown that they're achievable, but not in a business as usual approach.
That was Professor Kitila Mkumbo. Now let's turn to the rest of the panelists. Let's start with Mr. Issa Omar. What's your take on the brief explanations that Professor has given us?
Well, thanks, Kingu, for having me. And I wish to commend the professor here for doing a great job in that docket, planning and investment. Since the professor has highlighted the achievements, I want to focus on the challenges. And to start with, I would like to quote President Mkapa when he was addressing the public at the official launch of the Public Service Reform Program in 2000, after the failure of the Civil Service Reform Program that was launched in 2001. And actually he said, I was particularly concerned with apparent decline of competence, discipline, ethics, and morale of the public service when I assumed office in 1995. And this highlight the many challenges that first the implementation of the Tanzania Development Vision 2025, particularly during the first 15 years. And actually the first 15 years, most of the time we were off track. So we were trying to get on track. And we did that by sometimes a decade ago. And which is why also I commend the minister for that regard, because they managed because they were catching up. The last decade has been catching up. And there are many problems that exacerbated what the late President Mkapa highlighted. And one is, I said, we had the problem in terms of a deteriorating culture of execution, particularly when you have a public bureaucracy, which is charged with implementing the policy implementation as well as implementing the Dira 2025. And that was one of the major problems. Again, you had another problem. It was that there was, I don't know whether deliberately but there was a neglect of meritocracy, particularly in terms of public service equipment, and this greatly affected the implementation of that. And what political scientists like my colleague Dr. Mbuda call kakitocracy, which is the government or a bureaucracy to some degree by competent individuals or personnel. And again, you had the rampant public sector corruption. And this featured in particular in elite power struggle, both within the political establishment, and you had some of the major grand corruption scandal during that period that I said. And this also affected the implementation. And the form of economy had, it was like a bazaar economy in the sense of smash and grab capitalism, which of course is a consequence of the failure of SAF structural adjustment program, but then we are trying to also get back on that. And again, you had also persistent neo-patrimonial practices in the form of the politics of personal prestige, client politics, the Mtandao phenomena, which was common during that time. And actually, the likes of scholars like John Jingu highlighted that it went to the extent that the state was captured. Of course, we had partial state capture, not partial state capture, and this also somehow disrupted the implementation of the Vision 2025, particularly during this period. And again, one of the most serious problems, and this is not only in Tanzania, but also in sub-Saharan Africa, is the culture of policy discontinuity with the change of regime. And this actually significantly stifled effective implementation of policies, but also it resulted to policy incoherence. And actually, so during this period, policy implementation and coordination was like a process of trial and error, which is why, so we are going back and forth, back and forth. You remember we had the Kilimo Kwanza, BRN, of course, Kigamboni Satellite City, and some of the state parastatals invested in Kigamboni, like Dege project by NSSF and so on. And then you see all these efforts went in vain because of that problem of policy discontinuity. And also, and then we even went to the extent of dismantling the think tank of the government in planning, policy and development planning, which is the National Planning Commission, before it was reintroduced back in 2023 with the National Planning Act. And then you had the creation of the National Planning Commission and also a ministry specifically in charge of that.
So those are really, really challenging. Professor, I'm going to give you time to respond later on. I can see that you like to chip in and give your word. But now, as economic analyst, Dr. Kayosa, maybe you give us another perspective. After the brief explanation that Professor has given us on the current vision, Dira 2025, what's your take on the design and the implementation part of it? I think that's where the major problem is. Mr. Omar here has actually outlined on that. What's your take on that?
Again, allow me also to start by congratulating the good professor for the work they have done. And two, as panelists, I think we're proud that we are having him here because he speaks ex cathedra in matters of policy setting and policy implementation from the seat he sits on. And I think that is a very good thing that TBC is doing. I would like also to say, before I indulge myself in the aspects of the downside of the Vision 20, Dira 2025 that we are about to complete. Any Dira, as in economic terms, we call them development dashboards, always attempt to answer four main areas. Number one is to establish a moral order of that particular society. And I think we have some problems, but by a large extent, I think we have done very well in that aspect from the Dira 2025. Number two is about prosperity, as he has highlighted very well. Economically speaking, of course, you can't argue with three main factors that we have grown our economy. $72 billion has been added into the economy from 13, as I said. That is a huge achievement. But productivity, of course, there are challenges. But in terms of productivity, you have to look at how the trend has been. I think we have done quite well in that aspect. Number three is about capital. When we started implementing Vision 2025, capital formation in the country was below 2%, and today it is about 7%. Of course, there are disparities between the rural areas and the urban areas, but by and large, we have done well. Number three is introducing or establishing predictable systems. Yes, of course, we have our challenges again on that aspect, but Tanzania has been able to establish predictable systems from economic governance to political governance. And lastly, is about social justice. And that, in that aspect, we have seen a country that values not only economic revamptions in many sectors, but also the social aspect of it. And that should be given to those who have been at the helm implementing the Vision 2025. On the other side, we have had some challenges, and I think in the design implementation, And I'm happy that Professor is here. These are the things they'll have to dive in with caution. One is that Vision 2025 centered much on what I call GPDism, the obsession with growth. And it's not a bad thing, you need to grow. But the reason as to why, for example, didn't hit the 2,000 per capita target is that we have had an economy that has been growing exponentially, but it has not done so well in terms of bringing it back to the people. And one of the reasons is not all about the architecture of the vision itself, but the implementation. There are things that we cannot escape, of course. For example, the question of public debt. Now, if you look at the economy itself, over 70%, it is the debt-driven growth. And what has that done? It has eaten up the role of private sector to the extent that, yes, we may say that it is doing well, but it's crippled. If you look at the numbers, in the first 10 years of the implementation of Vision 2025, private sector was contributed 60% of the total growth. Yet, if you look at the percentage, if the economy grew by 7%, 60% of that was coming from the private sector and 40% was coming from the public sector. The 10 years later, things changed. What happened is that the private sector was contributing almost 40% and the public sector contributing 60%. And in the last 5 years before President Samia Suluhu Hassan came into office, things were worse. In fact, private sector, if you look at the numbers, was contributing, of that 5% growth, was contributing almost 22%. You can't sustain a modern economy whereby the private sector is performing dismally, and that happened. I don't blame it to the architecture of the Dira. I think it's about how do you implement that. Because if you're obsessed with growth, the danger is that you are looking at the macroeconomic variables as indicators of development. In fact, it shouldn't be the way, because you need to grow. But how do you link the two? And I think later we'll discuss much about that. Lastly, a footnote on that, on the downside, I think there are certain components that you shouldn't miss, and I see that we are about to repeat that problem. We set the target in terms of the aggregates, but in terms of the parameters to get to that point is always the problem. We cogently argue right about them, but realistically don't see those figures coming out. And I want to give you the example because I know we go into vision.
Maybe before you give that, I think we will get time later on as well when we're discussing National Vision 2050, Dira 2050. Maybe Dr. Mbunda, we're targeting here, as Professor said, to be 1 trillion economy by 2050. And also to ensure that the country has the status of upper middle income country. What's your take on the brief explanations that the Professor has given? It'd be good as well to hear things that went well and the things that we're learning from the current vision.
Yeah, actually, it is lessons. What lessons? What lessons? Did we pick from implementation of Vision 2025? Maybe I should start with, of course, commending the third phase administration, and of course President Benjamin Mkapa in particular, the late Benjamin Mkapa, because if you go back, into history, you will note that it was only Malaysia that had a vision from 1991, and in Africa it's only Botswana from 1996. I mean, the country that had vision, and of course we also thought it is important to have a vision, because vision is a roadmap, and if you don't have a roadmap, you may not know where you're heading to. Actually, we are here evaluating Vision 2025 simply because, the big minds like Benjamin Mkapa thought that we need to have this in order to see, which trajectory are we taking in terms of development. So you'll note that basically Tanzania was included into the least developed countries group 1971 during the first phase administration under Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. And of course, probably it would have been very difficult to measure the progress that we are making. So Dira is giving us that compass. Omar has spoken about the moral compass, issues of integrity, the economic compass, and I thought it is also important to focus on the political compass, okay? But before I go to talking about the political compass, let me say one of the, to add to what the professor said, and of course I'm glad to be in a panel with the professor here. I think the most important achievement that we see in Vision 2025 is that we achieved our major target, moving from the least developed economy. We were included in 1971 to, middle, lower income economy. Of course, I will clarify that later on. And of course, I'm also a food sovereignty researcher. I've been, tracking our progress in terms of food self-sufficiency. And we've done so well, over time, achieving more than 115 to 120 percentage of self-sufficiency ratio. So great achievement if you can focus on the social services that we have, supplied to the people. Two challenges to add to what others have been saying. The first one is basically related to the political compass here. And I think when you talk about vision as a roadmap, and the focus is development, then you need to have a comprehensive definition of development. But I think our definition of development in Vision 2025 was, equated to economic growth, and he was saying about GDPism. So the focus was GDP, not necessarily other. I'll give a few examples, of course. Development has to be economic, has to be social, has to be cultural, and has to be political. And I'll focus on political development, which I think we did not, do enough in terms of focusing on development of institutions. It has been, an issue that has been picked up in Dira 2050, but development of institutions. For example, we are talking about maybe political parties. They need to grow, and I'm not sure if they are growing. Maybe the professor will have something to say on that. Institutions such as maybe Office of the Registrar of Political Parties and their activities, and so on and so forth. So I think, and not only that, but also observance of issues of human rights. And I'm not sure if we've done enough in terms of making sure that we have observed that. We can discuss about that. But the second thing, with regard
that'll be the final one, Professor.
Yeah, no problem.
Then you get
no problem. No problem.
With regard to
their comments.
Vision 2025.
We're full of doctors.
Yeah.
It's that although I said here, I commend the government and Tanzanians for moving from least developed countries to middle lower income countries, a group of countries. But I think we didn't have, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, we didn't have, proper key performance indicators.
KPIs.
The KPIs. Like, for example, I believe, because I also follow the analysis that is being done. It is in 2024, last year, that's where the United Nations the Committee for Development Policy, which is an independent committee of experts, which is reporting to ECOSOC, and that's the one which has been mandated to do basically the evaluation in order to declare that countries have graduated or not. So last year is when they declared that we have graduated. But you remember that we were declared to have graduated in 2020 by the World Bank, and they used only one indicator, which is GNP per capita. Okay, while actually I want to finish that one so that I can I can clarify matters. While actually there are two other important indicators, such as economic and environmental vulnerability index, which is regarded by the Committee for Development Policy. We did not regard that, but also the human assets index, in terms of school enrollment, literacy rate, et cetera, et cetera. You see? So basically, we accepted that we have graduated by only one indicator, while we were not doing well in the other indicators. But at least now we are past it, because they have declared that we have graduated.
That's a good point about KPI.
Yeah. Yes.
As much as what the president actually said during the launch of
Dira
2050. Now, Professor, after this, we're going to get to the Dira 2050, but maybe I give you a moment to respond to what the rest of the panelists, of course, have spoken about.
That is fine, but I'm sure this is not going to be a question to the minister session. But I agree with a lot of things that they said, even though cautiously, because there has been a lot of respect to the implementation of the Vision 2025.
Yeah.
And to be honest, all our 6 presidents, this Vision 2025 has been implemented by 4 presidents.
Yeah.
President Mkapa, President Kikwete, President Magufuli, and now President Samia. So 4 presidents. These issues of Kilimo Kwanza, those are slogans.
Yeah.
And a president has a right to come up with their own slogans. But that does not necessarily change the gist of the contents of the vision. But in terms of the content of the vision, actually, they tried very much to stick to what was agreed, which is why I said we were guided by the 5-year development plans. The problem we had was that we came up with the implementation strategy very late. It is called long-term perspective plan, because the vision came out in 2000, but the LOTPP came out 10 years later. That was the major problem. We did not have the implementation strategy. Yeah. So it was during Equator that was developed. That was the major problem. Yeah. But of course, the president will always have their own slogans. Magufuli came up with Hapa Kazi too. Samia came up with the Kazi Endele. But that does not change the main process that we are implementing. All these projects we are seeing, the SGR, the road expansion, the Maribyrnong Dam, these were part of the Vision 2025. They were part of the 5-year development plans. They may differ in terms of the pace of implementation, but really, I think they tried very much to focus on the implement. But otherwise, I respect, I think, this very important analysis of what we did. And I hope that we can focus on what we have now going forward. But overall, the independent assessment by independent experts show that the implementation of Vision 2025 was above 7%, between 7 to 8%. So it was not implemented 100%, but it was largely implemented. And we are able to achieve a lot of indicators, especially social indicators. Actually, I think the economic indicators were a bit lagging behind. But I think the analysis shows that we did very well in terms of social indicators, meaning education, health, water, and a lot of others. So, yeah.
I like, Professor, the way you say that we should focus on the future now. Let's talk a little bit about the Vision 2050. Gentlemen, I'm mastering the show, but also I'm also a timekeeper. I know you're all good speakers, so don't mind when I cut you short.
Sure. Okay.
Professor, let's discuss about the Vision Dira 2050, its design, I know a lot of people, they do know about the goals that we are trying to achieve, but maybe you might want to explain other goals that we have in the Dira 2050, but also the strategies that we have set to make sure that we implement this one from drawing lessons from the previous one. I mean, it will be the previous one by the end of June next year, but from the current one, the Dira 2025, this the strategies that we have set, but also the goals that we have to ensure that Tanzania goes to a $1 trillion economy.
Yeah. So the starting point that what is also very different from the previous Dira is that the current Dira has a long-term, almost perpetual goal, which is Tanzania becomes prosperous, inclusive, just, and self-reliant. This one is almost, you cannot put when you're going to achieve this. This is long-term, perpetual, and actually some of the scholars, like Professor Issa, they have said very clearly that actually a vision doesn't have to have a time frame. Because a country, we have to have something that a country will always be, chasing to achieve. And therefore, what we want to achieve perpetually in this Dira is we become a prosperous, inclusive, just, and self-reliant. This is what we want to become. So the remaining will be the house, where we now have the goal. We have 4 main goals in the Dira. Of course, economy is number 1. Then we have to do with human development. We have issues of environment. So, for example, on the human development, we are saying we want to see that Tanzanians are living an average of 75 years, not just years, healthy and happy. Because you can live 100 years, but actually miserable. We want them to be happy, healthy. And in these goals, each goal has a target. So together we have 18 targets that we are trying to achieve across 4 aspects. One is called foundation, which is governance, peace, security, and stability. So that is the main foundation. We say, without achieving this one, this is this is the foundation of the vision. We really have to do this one. If this one shakes, everything else shakes. And then we are achieving that through 3 pillars. So number 1 is always the diversified, inclusive, strong economy. And we are putting the word inclusive purposively because he said it correctly. One of the challenges we had previously, yes, the economy was growing, but this economy was growing in a way that is not very inclusive, but it also was not able to reduce poverty at a very respectable pace, was not generating employment sufficiently. So we want to ensure that the economy is not just growing, but actually is growing inclusively so that everybody is inclusive. So that number 1. Number 2 is what we call human capabilities and social development. So the aspect of uwezo wa watu, I mean, people have to be capable. So the aspect you were talking about, issues of meritocracy, ensuring that we have a capable human resource, because this is the most important resource. And then the last one, which is critical, we are talking about the environmental integrity and climate change resilience. The purpose is to ensure that we don't just enjoy today, but we are also responsible for the coming generations. So I think the vision is the gist is a people-centered vision. So the design to come to these contents, we were instructed very early on by Her Excellency, our president, way back in December 2023. She insisted, make sure the process of writing this vision is inclusive and participatory. And it is true. We don't have any other, policy-driven process which has captured as many views from a wide range of people as this one. Not even the process in the Katiba, Katiba, not even the constitutional review process. So this has been very inclusive, and so many people have given out their views, especially the young people. So the design, we are very comfortable with it.
So you think to make the preparation process as participatory as possible will help in the implementation?
It is very important because at the end of the day, this has to be, it is called a national vision, not a government vision. Yeah. So it has to be a people's vision. Everybody has to see themselves into this vision. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it ends up being a nice government document, and you don't want to be the case. So it is a Tanzanian's document that everybody has to be part of it.
I'll get back to you, Dr. Mbunda and Dr. Kayoza.
Yeah.
Maybe Professor later on, you'll explain to us about the strategies that we have in place to ensure that we achieve all those goals. Dr. Mbunda, what's your take on the Vision 2050, based on what Professor has explained, but what you have captured so far?
Well, I like the fact that there is brevity, in the Dira 2050. I mean, you don't expect to see each and everything in a Dira. It is a vision, a roadmap, and then when it comes to implementation, you have the right strategies in place. And I used to joke with one friend that I saw one manifesto with more than 300 more than 300
this
pages.
time is only 78 pages.
Yeah, but Dira. I mean, and even when I saw the hard copy of the Dira, I thought, why don't you create something small, like something that can fit into the book, so that people should work with it, because it's national vision, as you said, and we expect even other political parties apart from the ruling party, to have, to include this vision into their manifesto. True. Anyway, I want to commend you, of course, for job well done. You and of course the team and all the experts. And I must say I thank you, because I also was part of the process. When a meeting was held at the University of Dar es Salaam, I had an opportunity to say a few things about Dira. So in terms of how the roadmap has been crafted, it's somber for me. But a few things that I wanted to share with you, because of course we are talking about implementation strategy. The first thing that I'd want to say is actually echoing what was presented by Honorable Rostam Aziz. Honorable because he's former member of parliament, former MP, on indigenization of the economy. I like the fact that you are talking about self-reliance, okay? Self-reliance, and we want to have self-determination in future, okay? But I don't think we can be self-reliant if we don't have strategies that indigenize the economy, okay? By indigenization of the economy, I mean that, our people, our companies, should have, control of the economy. They should have a larger stake in the economy. African countries are good at incentivizing and, inviting foreign direct investors to come and invest, which is a good thing because it contributes to economic growth. But at the end of the day, we are talking about profit repatriation, okay? So I would expect, and because we are doing a lot of construction here, I would expect we have a strategy that empowers, local companies to participate. And, I one day asked you about the PPP, Public-Private Partnership Center. Why isn't it in, the in your docket? Because it is about investment. So I thought you could do a lot in terms of, helping these local companies, local indigenous companies, to have a stake, in the investments. That's one. Second, I hope you are not looking at me badly because of the time. I was concerned about an ideology, because when you are talking about self-reliance, it relates to some of the ideologies that we adopted in the past. And I know countries that have done very well, like the East Asian tigers, for example, like China, they were guided by certain ideologies and models, such as the developmental state model. Confucius as a way an ideology that brings people together and emphasizes issues of work and etc. But if you look at Dira, I think it's like we embrace a lot of liberalism. Maybe you would like to respond to it, but don't you think that we probably need, in during the when we craft the implementation strategy to ensure that there is an ideology imbued to implementation of Dira 2050.
Maybe we'll get time to talk about.
May I chip in?
Yes, or Mr. Omar.
I think, of course, that is a good thing. And the last time when we were here, we were talking about unleashing the potential of micro, small, and medium enterprises, in order to promote, of course, economic transformation, but also promoting cross-border trade. Actually, there was a study conducted between, of course, it was a study conducted between 2014 and 2024. And that study showed that most of the money, particularly in road construction, most of the funds from TransRoad went to Chinese companies. And top 10 were Chinese companies. Actually, China Civil Engineering and Construction Corporation siphoned off almost 4.9 trillion. $4.9 trillion. And in total, the Chinese companies siphoned off almost more than $11 trillion. 11 trillion Tanzanian shillings, sorry. So you find that that is very difficult. And actually, I think this is more a systemic problem. It's not only a national problem. Because if you are borrowing money and most of these multilateral financial institutions, actually, they even determine the procurement policies of these countries. So this somehow preclude local contractors. And actually, in that period, Tanzanian companies only accrued around 633 billion Tanzanian shillings. If you compare with the 11 trillion from China, and the top 10 companies were Chinese companies.
Maybe
and that,
Professor, get time to respond to that.
Yeah, there are many questions, so we shall see.
And therefore, I want to emphasize that one thing that the government can opt for is unleashing the potential of not only small, medium, and micro, small, and medium enterprises, but also the state-owned enterprises, like what the Chinese are doing. And actually, in 2023, with the National Investment Act, Public Investment Act, sorry, we did create Public Investment Authority and a Public Investment Fund as our sovereign wealth fund to attract investment in key government assets, key state assets. And I think that is a good way to go. And most of these projects, then that will help also in indigenizing the economy, but also promoting national ownership of development, including asserting our control of development policy, especially in a world now that is shaped by, as I said, neoliberal independence dynamics. In that way, we will be promoting national self-reliance. Otherwise, you cannot survive in this context.
Great points there, gentlemen. Indigenous issue companies and also state-owned.
But maybe a footnote before he comes in, just because I want to add to what he just said about the role of the state. I think the state should not just be a regulator, of the economy, regulating the activities of maybe private sector, public sector. I think at some point in time, we need to decide that we want to focus on this aspect. So I thought, because when he talks, then the professor will probably have an opportunity to say. Then I thought maybe it is important also to highlight the role of the state. If we want to achieve, development faster, the state should not just stay as a regulator. Should also be, an activist state, an activist, or scholars such as Guy Muhone, Tandika Mkandawile, they were talking about, a dirigist state, an activist state, a state that, works actively to encourage investment rather than just inviting investors. So you invest, if for example, you want to make sure there is a forward and backward linkages between agriculture and the industrial sector, then the state should even build some of the industries. And then maybe later on, you allow people to own stakes in those industries. Right? Yeah.
Let's make this program as discussion as possible.
Yes.
So if you want to chip in and add a point or comment, feel free to do so. Dr. Kayoza, let's talk about the issue of inclusiveness. Professor explained a lot about it. Have we made positive strides as far as Vision 2050, Dira 2050 is concerned?
I think we have done that. If you look at the driver, the enablers they are put in place, they are talking about in the Dira, I think they aim at doing that. But also the software of it about governance, I think we're aiming to have a democratic state, human rights, and the rest. I think that those are the main components when you want to build an inclusive economy. But I would like to go back to where you started. On the Dira itself, of course, this is the roadmap. Of course, we'll have the gist of it from the implementation, but it's very important to start from the onset. And I would like to say that, I don't know if you know, Professor, that when you are inaugurating that was your 15th economic speech since you got into that office. And it was the 36th speech of the president. And I've analyzed your all speeches, fantastic, and the president as well. So you are spot on the question of inclusivity. I would like to say also, in those speeches that you gave, the president and your speech, they were appealing. I think the question that these two friends are raising, the question of having our local companies, our local business people, I think the foundation where it begins is that how we will implement that thing. And one, I don't want to talk much about it. What I said, if you say you want to achieve a $1 trillion economy, you know, it is easier from the way we are running our economy. Because if you borrow money, for example, today, inject into the economy, the next morning, the next year, numbers will show that the economy has grown. Has expanded. Let's not use the term growth, has expanded. And then you count the numbers and say, this is what we are doing. But actually, in fact, if you go inside, they are saying, you find that a lot of capital is being expatriated systemically, as I said, because you don't have financial muscles of these local companies. And one of the problems is how we count what we call GDP. But again, I think Professor will have also to have a serious discussion on 1 trillion economy. Because if you look at the numbers, to a certain extent, you don't see that we are achieving there. Let me put these numbers in perspective. If you have to look at the vision, the 5-year development plan that we are almost to finish, it was estimated that we use 114 trillion to implement that, to get there. And we put 40 trillion from the private sector, of which 19 from the public-private partnership. Now, if you see at the trajectory, in the last 5 years, in the last 4 years, the economy has expanded by $12 billion, 30 trillion Tanzanian shillings. If you look at the contribution of the private sector, so to speak, we were shy about 21 trillion in terms of the contribution. Now, with this pace, what the numbers are showing is that you need, in the next 25 years, to sustain a $1 trillion economy, you need private financing or private capital in the tune of over 600 trillion Tanzanian shillings. And of that, you need from the PPPs, for example, to sustain the economy of over 300 trillion Tanzanian shillings. Now, even when you have done that, numbers are showing you won't hit 1 trillion, in fact. And these are my numbers. But I think that's what I'm saying, that we need to make these things better. You hit at around $800 billion. And I will tell you 3 reasons. Number one is, for example, on energy. One of the problems we have been having in this country is energy deficit. Now, to sustain a $1 trillion economy, you need around your capacity in terms of electricity, for example, power. You need around 60,000 megawatts. We are below 10,000 megawatts. In 25 years, you need a lot of private financing in that aspect to sustain that economy. Now, how do you move from below 10,000 megawatts, for example, of electricity, to 60,000 megawatts? Because that's the equivalent of the South Africa's economy, which is around $400 billion. They have over 50,000 megawatts of electricity. Ours will be much bigger because of the resources we are having. Number two, you have the question of food. Is talked about.
Mhm.
Yes, we talk about food
Self-sufficient,
sufficiency,
yeah.
but I like the word sovereignty.
Sovereignty, yeah.
Today, over 50% of Tanzanians' income comes from, is spent on food, despite the fact that we have over 128% of food sufficiency,
Yeah,
as we call it. And that tells you one thing, that you have on one side the expansion of the macroeconomic indicators of the economy, which of course I'm happy that the professor agreed with that, but that is not trickling on the productive capital, because the three layers of capital: productive capital, natural capital, and the human capital. In that aspect, you don't have that thing. The last one that is not adding up is the value addition deficit. We have had this problem in this country for the longest. And in modern economies, for that to happen, you have 19 countries with the $1 trillion economy in the world. Now, if you look at the numbers, to sustain that, you need per capita value addition to be more or less the same with the per capita income. Now, we're saying 7,000 per capita to have a $1 trillion economy. But if you look at the per capita, you need around $9,000 US, and that's the opposite of what we're expecting to do. So I agree that we haven't reached at the implementation stage, but looking at the targets, and I would like to be as ambitious as possible, Professor, no doubt about that, but I think we will have to be very careful with the way we communicate to the public. And of course, one of the hula balloons that has risen about the per capita that we have. And one of the reasons is that the way you project and the way you look at this, I don't talk about the speed. Of course, he has said very well that it won't be business as usual, but you have to have some kind of, I don't want to use the word, kind of, you need to be optimistic, but you don't need to be Pollyanna. And this professor, I think, would have to have
I think the balance view. Yes, I'll give time to Professor.
I think it is very important to respond to this one.
Yes.
Especially I wanted to confirm to him. This has not been easy. It has been hours, weeks, and months of serious economists locking themselves into various rooms, doing a lot of modeling. It was not easy to come up to these numbers. Actually, initially, our numbers were around $500 to $700 billion. So we have had internal and external reviews, hours of modeling, different models. The model that came out, it was the economy could grow with certain conditions, could grow up to $1.86 trillion. And therefore, the economy sat. Then we came out with this number of $1 trillion. So it is ambitious. It is attainable. Now we can discuss, we can discuss how impossible it is, but we can discuss how possible it is. So we are on the side of discussing the possibilities to that. This is why some people talk about pathway to $1 trillion economy. But I just want to clarify to him that, this has not been, it's not just like a number was thrown from nowhere, 1 trillion. No, it has been hours and hours, weeks and weeks of very serious economic experts sitting down, a lot of modeling. I can tell you, I asked them very difficult questions. They provided at least 3 models, each of them leading to these numbers. But the key point is that it is a very high ambition, but it is attainable. We have to work very hard. We have to change a lot of things. And we are willing to change. This is why it is very clear from the president's speech that, no. This is not going to be business as usual. It is because of the target we have set. They are very high level targets, but we have to get there. Because what we're talking about here is actually by 2050, this economy you're talking about is going to give us only 1.5 million shillings per month. Do we really want to, by 2050, 25 years later, we want to have Tanzanians who are earning less than 2 million shillings? Tanzanians who are earning less than 5,000 shillings per day? Then it means that we want to be able to get out of this poverty. So yes, there are only around 18 to 19 countries who are more than $1 trillion economy and above. We have to get there. We don't want to get to 2050. We are smaller than what Indonesia is today. we are smaller than Vietnam. No.
Yeah.
So I think this is and by the way, in the region, we have set ourselves in the region, East African region, we want to attain $10 trillion economy by 2050. And the many contributors are Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. These are the three countries that are trying to contribute to $10 trillion economy. So if we set anything less than that, it means that we're not even contributing to the regional targets. So again, let me summarize by saying that he's raising very important questions. These are the questions that were asked in months that we had in the process. But actually, economists finally came to this number. Let me come to address...
politely, Professor, politely, with due respect. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the seriousness of these people who have done that. Because I remember there was a debate in 2000s led by the Professor and with the rest. They were arguing, I was very young, but they were arguing that for sure we'll attain a 3,000 per capita income by 2025. We are not a half of that. It is not because those people are not serious, it's because circumstances. Number two is that if you look at the region again, number two, the question that we have to be asking your experts is, how many countries in the history of the world economy have attained that level from the level we are in the span of 25 years? That's a serious question because in economics, history is our laboratory. Number three is that if you move around here in the countries, you have an economy like Uganda, they are planning to have in the next, by 2040, to have an economy of $5 billion US. Now, if
5 billion?
500 billion US dollars. Now, if you say these countries will contribute to an East African economy of 10 trillion.
That's the vision. I hope you've read the East African vision.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying now. That yes, it is good to be ambitious. And I would like to be very ambitious, but have also to consider what message you'll be sending to them, because we have to move with the people, and the people should understand you from the beginning. Because at the moment, when you come out and say, we have attained 400 billion US dollars, you know the implication of that? And that's my concern. I mean, now it's better.
I think we can discuss this one. What I'm saying is,
Professor, to respond,
it has not been easy to reach these targets. It has been hours and hours of expert analysis, research, consultations, discussions, reviews, both by internal and external experts. But the discussion now should be, how do we get there? We have the vision now. It's not about we should get there or not. It's really about you as experts. You tell us, my friend, Minister of Planning, to get there, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me address the issue of the ideology. This is a very important issue. This was also a discussion. Should the vision have a clearly specified ideology? And eventually I said no. Because of two reasons. One is that, practically speaking, today, the world all over is becoming ideologyless or ideologically bankrupt, really. We are becoming much more pragmatic. But we also refuse to do that because we will not be attaining the national political consensus. Because the political parties, because ideology is really not the goal. It is the means to achieve something. Political parties will come up with the ideology. Today's system is talking about Ujamaa. Chadema will talk about something, CAF and others. So if we put an ideology in the vision, or in the Dira for that matter, already we will be, alienating some of the political players. So we said, okay, for purposes of national consensus, let us not have the ideology in the document. But we are very clear in terms of what should be the role of the government, what should be the role of the private sector. And we are very clear. I'm also a very strong believer that a government cannot just be a tax collector or a regulator. No. A state must participate actively in the economic development. But it has to be clear what kind of activity that the state should be doing. I believe that the state should not be running buses, for example. The state should not be selling beers. But the state must be actively engaged in the economic infrastructure development. This has to be the role of the state. And that has been very clearly stated in the vision.
Professor, if I have to sum up what you've said.
May I chip a bit on the two sentences?
Yes.
One, of course, I agree with Prof that the ideological persuasions of Tanzanian political parties currently are virtually the same, in contrast to what prevailed at the onset of plural politics. But another thing, if you do a critical analysis of Dira 2050, you'll see that there is an ideology, and it's more of a center-left social democracy, because we're talking about a comprehensively inclusive in terms of poverty eradication, which is at the heart of global development policy, SDG1. You're talking about inclusive climate justice, social justice. You are talking about reducing gender gap by 85%. All this, they entail something if you aggregate them. And therefore, there is an inherent ideology, of course, but they say it's about political pragmatism or ideological pragmatism. I don't know. But then we can continue to discuss this. Thank you.
Great. As they say, when the why is clear, the how is easy. Right?
Yeah.
In case you've just joined us, this is Tanzania Today, your weekly program that discusses issues of national interest. And today we're discussing about Dira 2050. And of course, we've got time as well to review the current one, Dira 2025. I would like, Professor, maybe, we're not living on our own. We have East African community, we have African Union, we have United Nations as well. How is national vision, Dira 2050, aligning with the rest, especially with the vision of East African community, African Union 2063, and also the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations? How have we done the alignment to ensure that we all move forward?
So I just want to confirm that Dira 2050 is perfectly aligned with the other regional and the international development visions. To start with the East African vision, as I say, the target there is $10 trillion by 2050. Is also perfectly aligned with the African Agenda 2063. This was very important reference document for us. It is also aligned with the social development goals, which are coming to an end in 2030. So basically, we tried as much as possible to ensure that we align with the international development framework, because Tanzania is part of the region, is part of the globe context. But Tanzania is trying to position itself as a competitive player, which is why the vision is also perfectly aligned with our newly inaugurated foreign policy, because that was an important aspect, which is why we have one of the aspirations is about regional and international engagement. And this is where the new foreign policy drew its context. So it is aligned with a lot of those regional and international development frameworks.
I would like to put this question. Yes, Dr.
A little bit, especially with regard to this alignment. We are saying Vision 2025 should give us lessons to carry forward. And you said it very well, Professor, that it was implemented by 4 presidents. Actually, 2 presidents were eligible for the Mo Ibrahim Prize for African leadership achievement, and unfortunately, none of them has been nominated. So I want to ask, especially with regard to how we want to move forward with the 4R philosophy of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, and our focus on having an inclusive economy, focus on good governance. I mean, what strategies have we put in place to ensure that, in the next several years, at least we have, presidents who are, nominated for the Mo Ibrahim. Because that's basically trying to, you are expressing yourself that what we are doing, in Tanzania should also be recognized outside. And of course, to maybe to put a footnote on that one, from 2020, it was the last laureate is President Mamadou Issoufou, I think, of Niger, 2020. And of course, We had Helen Johnson Sirleaf, Liberia, 2017. So but from 2020, there's never been
no qualifier.
Yeah, and of course, Mo Ibrahim himself is saying he's not going to lower the standards. Yeah. So I just wanted to provoke. It's like to provoke a debate. How are we going to, express ourselves domestically and internationally to ensure that
I'm not sure if we should be chasing after more Ibrahim Prize, but I think we need to do the right thing. Yeah. Within the Dira 2050, we are very clear about governance, to ensure that we have good governance. Yeah. We have restated that Tanzania will continue being a multi-party democracy, respecting dignity, respecting human rights, respecting and adhering to the rule of law. I think this is important, and these are the fundamental, foundation. This is the fundamental foundation of Dira 2050. So, in terms of implementation, if someone like Mo Ibrahim sees us as meeting his own standards, and we are eligible for his prize, that will be fine. But here we are not going to be working so that we get the prize. That is not going to be our goal. We'll be doing our things to ensure that we're able to implement our vision alongside the target that we have set ourselves.
Gentlemen, as we're coming towards the end of our program, I would like to put this question on the table. I don't know who will be the first to respond. We are living in a crazy world. We're not sure about tomorrow. We've seen recently uncertainties happening out of the blue. How is this Dira 2050 designed to absorb the escalating, for example, trade tensions and policy uncertainties across the world? Just yesterday, there was a major meeting involving ministers, SADC ministers, and it's high time for us to be self-reliant. Combined with this, how do you think this is designed to ensure that we absorb whatever shock that is happening globally?
I think we need to have internal mechanisms, of course, of absorbing whatever international shocks. But we have to not to be bereft of the fact that that is not an easy job as a developing country, because I like to authoritatively tell you that 70% of potential growth of any particular country today in the world is concentrated in three pillars: the United States of America, the China, and the European Union. So it will greatly depend on what these people do. Of course, now yours is to, as we have always done, to extend your domestic policy, not to, of course, crumble your ways of going forward. Lastly, I would like to say two things. One is what the president said, that I think we need to. She said she'd like to see more debates. And I'd like to say this, Professor, the debate should not end. People may have locked themselves in their rooms and argued extensively about these things. I think we need to have serious debates about these things. It's very important. Number two, lastly, is what the World Bank has always cautioned us. There is a lot of reports about the middle income trap. And two serious issues have always been raised. One is targets, that countries have been setting targets good from the numbers, but in terms of dealing with them, we have always been bereft of the potentials. The problem with economic modeling is that, and everybody today, the leading economists, find top 30 leading economists, they are pointing fingers to the models. And this should also be a point of argument when we are saying that we want to attain $1 trillion. And two, they're pointing about, which is good, of course, we have done, I think, how people participate in these processes. It's not enough for people to sit down and say, this is the government's business. It's everybody's business. And therefore, it's very important that people should participate as much as possible to make this a reality. Anyone would like to respond to that? But
maybe
before we give time
two quick additions. One is very well covered in the Dira 2050, and it has to do with environmental sustainability. Okay, we have the vision of being climate change resilient, because climate change is actually one of the major, uncertainties you are mentioning. And I was happy to see that. I don't know, maybe it was the influence of the president, because she was a former minister for environment, but also as vice president, she was also in that very same docket. But I mean, the Dira is covering that very well, because we cannot talk about development today forgetting future generations. So that's very well covered. But secondly, I think it has been this country's position, talking about multilateralism rather than unilateralism, okay? I think I remember the president one day said, if you want to go far, you go with the others, right? So I think those two issues will most definitely help us to address the uncertainties that you are talking about.
Maybe I have one issue, and
yes. 1 minute for you.
Tanzania will not achieve a 1 trillion upper middle income economy without promoting a regional cooperation policy that will ensure deeper integration with our regional peers, especially as we try to. One of the pillars that we want to become a logistical hub. And therefore, to do that, you need to deepen economic integration with our neighbors. And therefore, it is very essential that not only that we participate in the African Continental Free Trade area, but also pushing for a tripartite trade bloc between EAC, SADC, and COMESA, because this will help us leverage on our geographical advantage as a country, and therefore help us also to shield us from these global uncertainties that are coming from the global political, economic forces and dynamics that we are witnessing in current times. Thank you.
As we're coming towards the end of our program, of course, maybe, gentlemen, we need more time to discuss these issues. Professor, it's been a long discussion. Maybe how would you summarize Vision 2050? And maybe you have a message as well for Tanzanians and the rest of the world.
I think the message is this one, which has been given here. We have to continue engaging. We have to continue with these debates. Let us discuss. Let us bring back the culture of debates. Bring back the culture of divergent views. We want to hear all these different views. We don't want to be talking to ourselves. We really need to be talking and engaging with each other. So I'm encouraging Tanzanians to read the vision, this Dira 2050, discuss it, criticize it, but more importantly, let us, each one of us, focus on how can we achieve these ones. At the moment, the government has formed a team which is working on the implementation strategy, which is called long-term perspective plan. So I mean, it is also a time for everyone to contribute on how we are going to be able to achieve this vision, because it is our Dira. This is not a government Dira. Government is just one of the players, but everybody else has to be part of the process. Otherwise, I wanted to say that I want to thank you for providing.
Before we thank us, Professor, we have been given more time.
Okay.
Maybe I like this question. I've been thinking myself. The National Vision 2050 is there on the table, and maybe this one will be really good for the youth. I was listening to the speech of the president during the launch of the Dira 2050. She mentioned clearly about 65% of Tanzanians below the age of 36. So these are the young people. What do you think will be the really major and lucrative sectors over the next 25 years? Maybe young people will get to know and make sure that they really get hold of those sectors, so that our nation can move forward. Maybe we could start with you, Mr. Obert.
I think one of the, what I call transformative sector, first will be digital economy, secondly agriculture. And actually, because we aspire to become the largest food basket in Africa and among the 10 largest globally by mid-century, and therefore we need to strengthen agriculture. Of course, it was part of the Vision 2025 that we wanted to modernize agriculture, but now should be that of transforming. And to do that, I think we need to address the policy problem of urban bias. This is a bias in public policy, but also public spending in favor against rural areas in favor of urban areas, because of urban interest based due to their greater political influence. And in doing that, will help also as we aspire also to reduce the regional disparity. And last time I said that I commend the government firstly for connecting all regions in the national power grid, particularly the regions which are considered the poverty belt, which have been at the back foot of development since independence, like Kigoma, Kagera, Katavi. And now you have 400 kilovolt transmission line from Nyakanazi to Kigoma. And then that will be very important. So we need to also address one of Africa's most pressing challenges, which is access to reliable and sustainable power, as we try to energize the Dira 2050. And therefore, we need to address the problem that he pointed out, Dr. Kyoza, about energy deficit. And in that way, I think we'll achieve a balanced development, a human-centered development, and an inclusive development. Yeah.
Dr. Guys,
even before maybe Dr. Kyoza comes, I mean, look here. Over the last 60 years, this country, until 2024, we had been able to generate less than 2,000 megawatts in 60 years. But within a span of 4 to 5 years, we are able to generate 2,000 more megawatts into our national grid. So it is possible. I mean, the target in the vision is to have what they call per capita kilowatt per hour, 3,000. And we have targeted ourselves to ensure that we have at least 7,000 megawatts by 20. Because this is why within the digital, we have what they call the drivers, 5 drivers. One of them is energy. There is no way you can have this transformative economy without the energy sector. So he's correct. All the upper middle income countries, one of the factors is, except South Africa, one of the many factors is actually the energy sufficiency. And our experts have explored, have identified a number of sources, including actually nuclear power. And they've worked out a model on how we can reach to, actually initially they wanted to have 140,000 megawatts, but I think recently they moderated themselves. They're not talking about 7,000 megawatts, and they have clearly identified the sources to get us there. So he's correct that actually energy is the main factor to drive our economy alongside the human resource capacity.
Yes. Dr. Kyoza, would you like to?
So I wanted to respond to the question also about the youth. Yeah, I think it's a pertinent question. This vision is for the young people. 25 years from today, myself will be 50 something years of age. So
you'll only be 50. You're lucky,
but still be useful.
So I think it is for the youth. Now, 2 things are important. One is to achieve what we want to achieve in this Dira, it is important to deal with the question of unemployment. History has shown us that unemployment in the developing economies like ours, when it is 1%, it's up 2% of GDP. And in this country, if you are to dissect the numbers, it has been eating to about 4% of our GDP. And where does the rain start beating us? It is youth-led unemployment. So I think if we address that, it will give us a leeway in attaining that growth. Number 2 is to look at the sectors where we spend less capital to get one job, the capital to labor ratio. If you compare Tanzania today, where it is, the cost of creating a job is higher than countries that were in the same league, like India, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and the rest. They invest in the sectors where their people are. What I'm saying essentially is the question should be, Professor and the rest, should be, as I've been saying here, should be, where are our people? The question should not be, where are the sectors? And if you ask that question, you see where these young people are. Today, as we speak, we spend over 4 million Tanzanian shillings to get what they call white-collar jobs. But you need only 800,000 shillings, Tanzanian shillings, to create what we call the lower jobs. And that's where these people are, in villages, in towns, and the rest, between villages and towns. So I think we need to figure out on where are these people are. Not necessarily in the sectors, but where do you find them? And I think that should be very critical when we want to address the question of unemployment.
Dr. Richard Bunda, I'm sure you have your views on which sector will be the driving force for the next 25 years.
Yes, I first of all, I like the idea of BBT, building better tomorrow, because it actually invigorates, the vigor in youth to engage in actual investment in the agricultural sector. Although, of course, I was reading the CAG's report, he pointed out some challenges, but I think it is still a very great idea because it connects youth with the specific sectors, agriculture. Now, Dira 2050 actually picks 9 sectors as priority sectors, agriculture being one of them. Of course, with that ambition of achieving a $1 trillion economy, I know you cannot only focus on one sector. You cannot have one sector is a national project. Although I know countries like China, the East Asian tigers, they had one sector as a national project, and then it worked. If we are learning from history, I think we should have learned from there as well. And but for me, I think the most important thing was to have a backward and forward linkages between agriculture and industry. So industrialization, and unfortunately, for a very long time, we've paid lip service to industrialization. I remember I was commissioned to do analysis at some point in time. You note that the industrial sector, we had this slogan, Tanzania ya viwanda, and then only a fraction of the national budget was actually allocated to the industrial sector. So if we, in terms of implementation, Professor, if we can insist on the forward and backward linkages between agriculture and industrialization, and of course the other sectors, that would be a great deal, because a lot of young people would get employment due to that. But secondly, I don't know how this is featuring, because I tried to read the Dira and I couldn't see it. Of course, given our strategic geographical position, we are thought to be, a logistics and trade hub. So I thought maybe one of the drivers of economic growth and economic development in the country is to ensure that there is persistent investment in, water. That means ports, our ports. There is some port, Tanga, Mtwara port. In the roads that connect the ports with other, but also, railway. Of course, the projects are there. But I thought, there could be an emphasis, maybe somewhere in the Dira. But if it is not there, then in the strategies, at least we need to be. I know, for example, Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo, more than 60% of their trade cargo, they go through Tanzanian ports, which is a huge advantage, and we need to do more in order to ensure that our strategic geographical position becomes a driver of economic growth. So, and it will also open up employment to the young people that we are talking
Opening
about.
up by employment for the young
small
people.
Footnote for
Yes, Dr.
in our language, we say where you find the king is where you give your salute. So, of course, Professor would be at the helm of implementing the thing. In relation to the point of industrialization, the missing link has been research and development. We invest so little in research and development. Our data are showing in the last 30 years, if you take the amount, the amount of money we have been investing in relation to GDP, it is below 3%. You can't build a middle income country if you are spending less than 3% of your GDP for 3 decades. And actually, history has shown us that in a country of our level, you need to invest at least 5% of GDP to research and development so that you can link industrialization and productive growth. So one of the areas I think we need to work hard on, if we talk about industrialization seriously, is what do we do in research and development?
So I think we need to respond to these ones because I hope that people get time to read the document.
Yeah, yes. I would like you to respond to what they've raised, and also a message to Tanzania. And I'd like to stress on this one, regardless of their economic status, how this Dira 2050 is beneficial for them.
So number one is we have a section called drivers. And there are 5 drivers. Number one is called integrated logistics, which is trying to tap the potential of Tanzania's geographical location. So all these things have been discussed there, railway, ports, and all these things are there. And number 2 is energy. Number 3 is research and development. So that has been very much highlighted. Actually, now adding other than R&D, we are talking about RDI, research, development, and innovation. And number 4 is digital transformation. So there are about 5 drivers that we think they are very critical in terms of driving what we want to achieve. And of course, they've said it very well. The Dira 2050 ends with what we call the 9 transformative sectors, ranging from agriculture, tourism, minerals, blue economy, all the way to industrialization. And we are talking about the linking between the productive sectors. But what is more important there is not actually the sector themselves, is the selection criteria. So we have set out 5 selection criteria for a sector to be a priority area. So number 1, for example, is the potential for this sector to increase our export. Number 2, to generate employment. Number 3, government revenue generation. So there are about 5
value addition.
Value addition, exactly. That is also included there. So, and I think in terms of the thought, I think the thought is very clear. What is really going to be the heavy task, as the president said, will be the implementation. Now, the message to Tanzanians, I think that everybody will have a message, but for me, for now, is really everything begins with thinking. I think that we have thought fairly quite clearly in terms of where we want to go and how we want to go where we want to go. So the next step will be to implement. I think we really have to put a lot of energy in terms of implementation. So my message to everybody in this country, you find a room, a space for you to be able to implement where you want this country to be. Everybody wishes this country to be great. And I think that everybody has a role. Obviously, the government will have a bigger part in this process. And I want to assure you that the government of Our Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, is very much committed to ensuring that we're able to implement. The good thing is that this government, the ruling party, has produced the manifesto, which is perfectly aligned with Dira 2050. And because we're going to elections, this Dira is going to be very safe if we are able to bring it back, this government, so that it ensures is able to implement. I know that this is now a politician speaking, but I think it's an important message that we have to send out to Tanzanians, so that in October, we have a guardian of Dira 2050, the ruling party, and this government comes back to power.
Thank you very much, Professor. I hope that we have had a constructive discussion. As I said earlier, I think when you know why you want to achieve something, the how is easy. Is this the Tanzania we want? The answer is yes. So I think the how should be easy to get there. That's it. That's all we have for today. I would like to thank the Minister of State, Planning and Investment, Professor Kitila Mkumbo, for being with us here today. And as usual, Dr. Richard Mbunda, political analyst, Issa Omar, political analyst, and Dr. Pravyas Kayoza as well, economic analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Don't miss another edition next week, right here on your great television station, TVC1.